about this guy? See this guy? You see this guy? Here's a message for Sadiq Khan. All right? You're going to run again for London Mayor, and this is what we have to say about it. And I give him a little bit of a kicking as well. Come on, get off stage. Get off stage! All right. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker has come from another nation that is fighting hard to take their country back. In September, they have national elections. And 4 years ago, when I started covering this party on Breitbart London, people said to me, "You must be mad." Said they've got no chance. Well, I'm very pleased to say that the Sweden Democrats are now polling top consecutively and consistently in the polls in Sweden, and they are going to win in September. Hungary, Austria, the Czech Republic, Italy, Brexit, we are taking Europe back! Please, ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to a Member of Parliament for the Sweden Democrats. It's Kent Ekeroth!
Thank you very much. It's an honor and pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the warm introduction. I am from a completely insane country in Northern Europe, where upside down, unfortunately, is the norm, where boys are girls and girls are boys, and where war is peace. That country is called Sweden. We have become so utterly crazy, it's hard to explain for an outsider how crazy it has become. Probably the most crazy country on earth, except for maybe North Korea. But I thought that Sweden was the most crazy country on earth. And then England went ahead and put Tommy in jail. And then I realized, okay, we're actually facing competition about being crazy, the most crazy nation on earth. You might win that prize. I've been involved in formal politics for over 12 years, 8 out of which in Swedish national parliament. At my party's formation some 30 years ago, we took the fight against the political corrupt establishment, against the failed policies of mass immigration, political correctness, and we took the fight to expose the truth that this establishment are trying and have been trying to hide from its people. So from that perspective, I'm all too aware of the situation that Tommy is in. Back home in Sweden, we also suffered repression from the powers at hand who desperately tries to protect their failed policies. But the fate of Tommy is another level of transgression against our freedoms and our free speech. Tommy has become a symbol of resistance to this corrupt establishment, a symbol for the fight for freedom of speech and for our right to oppose that very establishment that has ruined more or less the whole of Western Europe. He's become a martyr for our cause, and his situation, as you can see here today from the speakers we have heard, has gained the attention of people across Europe, the US, and further out. We've seen protests in Israel for the release of Tommy. We've seen hundreds of protesters in Hungary for his release. We've seen him in Belfast, we've seen him in Washington. We even brought up the question in our parliament, a colleague of mine did. And the reason why Tommy's case has gotten so much attention is because this is a problem that is not isolated to England. It's a worldwide struggle. It's the fight between the left-wing liberals and their establishment who are trying to censor and stop ordinary people from access to information and to the truth. Now, we see these attacks on movements like this one and ours in Europe, and that's building up to a perfect storm. Not only is it our governments across Europe, but also international mega corporations such as Google and Facebook are teaming up with the left-wing governments to stop the opposition from being heard, from being financed, and from making a change. They're doing so by closing down accounts and pages on Facebook and YouTube. They censor results and newsfeed on Google. The EU, at the same time, tries to implement new laws that allow these corporations to stop the flow of information on the internet, just as they recently tried the European Parliament. Back home in Sweden, we have so-called hate speech laws. I'm sure you have them here too. And they are ever more being used to convict people for having a differing opinion. Or when in Sweden they try to change our constitution to stop people from knowing what's happening in our courts. And as we all know here all too well, now they started putting us in jail too. Tommy thus has become a symbol for this increasing opposition against all of this that we're facing. And that's why I'm here, that's why we have all these international speakers. We have the same fight and we're facing the same enemy. An enemy that turns a blind eye to years of sexual abuse against innocent young girls, but immediately punish the man who spreads the truth about it. Enemies that does little to nothing when its cities, such as London, fall victim to murders, stab sprees, acid attacks, but reacts immediately and harshly when one man tries to report on it. Fortunately, my friends, the tide is turning in Europe. In almost every country, there are parties like mine that act as a real opposition to the insanity and attacks on our societies. We have PVV in Holland, AFD in Germany, the Freedom Party in Austria, Vlaams Belang in Belgium. We have the Sweden Democrats in Sweden, we have the Danish People's Party, Front National in France, Lega in Italy, SDP in Switzerland, Fidesz in Hungary, and so on. We're winning. Unfortunately, your election system here stopped you from having such a party in power in parliament. That could have been UKIP, but your election system is rigged. It's meant to be stop parties like the UKIP from coming into power. So instead of channeling the growing resentment of the corrupt elite and establishment through a political party, you have Tommy Robinson. And that movement that you are part of here today is a movement not seen in any other country in Europe, I would say. To gather thousands of you here today on game day, even a World Cup, it's extremely impressive. Doesn't exist anywhere else. Be proud of it. And this here today is how change starts. This is how we win against our mighty enemy. an enemy that has destroyed our continent in favor of mass immigration, multiculturalism, and political correctness. And your actions here today and onwards are making a change, and it's my belief that in the future, these demonstrations will be seen as an important game changer and a historical turning point. I am, and I'm sure all the other speakers here today that are not from England, we're here because we care not only about our own countries, but for Europe as a whole. And we cherish our fantastic continent, and we want our European cultures to survive and to thrive. That's why we're here to support like-minded people and allies across Europe who have taken the struggle to take their country back. And England, of course, is an integral part of that. The cradle of modern civilization, a country who against all odds faced tyranny in Europe some 70 years ago, who stood up for what's just and for what's right. And on the 23rd of June in 2016, once again, you stood up for Europe, for the freedom of all European countries, when you said yes to independence and no to the federalist tyranny ruled by the global leftist elites. I'm convinced that Brexit as well will be seen in history books as a turning point in Europe, and we thank you for it. And as you, the English people, have stood up for Europe throughout the decades and for the immense sacrifices you have made, we now want to stand with you. With Brexit, you have begun to take your country back from the European Union and now take it back from your own corrupt political establishments. And let's start by bringing Tommy home. Bring him home. Thank you very much.